Wonk wonk. She's a little kiki. Hello. She's a little wonky. She's a little wonky. I know. It's probably tilted. Let me stop. Yeah. I know there is probably a slight tilt. I am sorry if that bothers you. I am not offended if you are and you need to click off. What are we doing today? So, first of all, I'm gonna take a shot. And I say SHOT of ALCO Hall because I am DRIN King, I guess. Is this like it burns a little bit? It's mango chili. So apparently at one of the local stores, a store in the family had closed down and they got some alcohol from that store that they don't usually carry. They priced everything. All the bottles were $4.99. I'm not a vodka drinker. I almost wish I was because they had like fun flavors, but I was like, I don't like vodka. I'm more of a tequila girly. Anyway, but they had this rum. They had Bacardi. I was like, Bacardi for like $5? Yeah, I'll try it. And it's actually like really good. It's really good. Now I'm like, I might have to go back and spend $10 more. Get 2 more bottles. Hold up. That's like really good. It do got a little bit of a zing. It's mango chili. And I'm not a huge mango fan. So I was like, okay. I am today. So let's get into this. Today, so I finished all the audiobooks that I was listening to, right? And so my walks have been interesting because I'm like, I haven't found anything. So I stumbled upon an old video of mine, and I listened to that, and it was interesting. Some of the ties, I think at the time Pluto was like 25 degrees in Capricorn, and in the video I was talking about how like Pluto was finally alone in Capricorn. Saturn, Mars, Jupiter had all like conjuncted it. Pallas Athena retrograded when Saturn retrograded back into Capricorn for that to all happen, and then Jupiter and Saturn conjuncted in Aquarius, and then everything was whatever, right? And I was like, oh wow. But anyway, like I only pulled one card. It was still like an hour long, but it was like one card, and I was like, okay. So I'm like, kind of sort of feeling the one card vibe, but I'm gonna roll a d4 to see how many cards I pull from how many decks, and then I'll roll the d4 to pick the decks. So that's what I'm gonna do today. I'm a dreamer. There are certain themes. There are themes that run in dreams, in my dreams. And it's so funny because I was just telling Reem about one of them not too long ago. And for the first time since I've been dreaming, especially in this theme, for the first time, like something drastic happened. First of all, something drastic happened. And then in another part of the dream, something even like more like, but when it happened in the dream, I'm just like, yeah, like that, it's a dream. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. That's perfectly fine. That's normal. And I don't remember the context of it. And it was the context that made it make sense. Because when I first saw it, I was like, what is going on? And then when I saw the context, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. All that to say that this may not even be a part of it. But yeah. Yeah. So let's get into it, shall we? Without much further preamble. Also, on the bottle, it says Una Empresa, which is a company. But it made me think of an Empress, and the Empress has been coming out a lot lately. Yeah, that's I don't know. I feel like there's a lot happening and a lot going on. And I feel like as more and more and more things happen, there are certain truths that become more and more and more evident. And I've every now and then I've thought about like making a post, saying something, and it just like it's never felt appropriate. Not appropriate, but it's never felt like there was anything for me to say. Because again, at this point, everything is so blatantly obvious. Anyway, I don't know. It's interesting. Also, I was going to talk about this, so I guess I will for a little bit. Since summer, no, tail end of spring, into summer, since May, mid May, since like right before Gemini season, there's been a lot of iterations of like personal truths and like living those truths or the like ramification of those truths. And here lately, I feel like the theme has continued. Now with Mars and Scorpio, I'm not because Mars is in Scorpio. What I will say is it only serves as an advantage for specifically me and maybe others because I don't necessarily know what other people are going through. But as I've been going through this, it can only be an advantage for me to know what I'm like deeply passionate about, what I care about, and who I am at my core. And I feel like for the past week ish, there have been different times where it's kind of sort of come up, but it feels like earlier in the week, it was like really pertinent. Just like who I am in my nature versus or in what's that word juxtaposition and juxtaposition to the world that I live in. And there are certain things where I'm like, it would be much easier if I were wired a different way, or if I were motivated differently, configured differently, if my truths more easily sort of melded into something that works with how things are. But at the same time, it's like everything is so situational and circumstantial that once the circumstances shift, then it's like if I'm not of a mind, but if I were of a mind to compromise and the circumstances shift, like what would I have compromised for? You know what I mean? It's like this is who I am, this is what I believe, this is like permanent core pieces of me, and the circumstances are temporary. So why? And shout out to my journey buddy, shout out to friends and family, shout out to people that are safe to be completely like vulnerable and open and honest with. Because every now and then, I guess, I have to be, or every now and then, especially lately, especially this year. Hey, Holly, how you doing? No problem. Thanks for stopping by and saying hi. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Um, every now and then I'll need to like be really honest. I won't need to, but I'll feel that it could be beneficial. And this year especially, I've had almost a few more of those, it seems. And I've had the feeling, even if there was a little bit of trepidation, I've had the feeling that like this is a person that I can like be open and honest and vulnerable with. And that vulnerability has never like returned void or empty. And because I've been received in an open, vulnerable position with someone whose counsel that not only I know I can rely on, but also someone who like can really receive that. And then when they speak back to me it's almost like what I only held within, now that I've communicated it and it's like replied to, or like not mirrored back to me, but like spoken back to me, now that like I'm engaging with this, I get to hear it or process it from a not completely internal space. And it's just like, I don't know, it's like I hear it differently. Or, and like my journey buddy, I do literally don't know. I literally do not know where I would be without her. Especially like even now, I feel like the ways that we show up for each other now, it's like vastly different. It's similar in the way that we show up, right? But how it like serves or how it benefits is vastly different now than it was in the beginning. Because in the beginning, it was almost about like escaping or like healing or breaking free. Now it's more about like evolving, becoming, embodying. Now that a lot of like the muck and the other stuff has been washed off of the things, it's different. And I don't know, because I remember it was just like heavy on my mind. Plus, I had another dream that fits this exactly. I told my number one fan about it. I didn't like what she said. I didn't like what happened in the dream because it was one of those, again, like it's not my nature to be anything except who I am. But if I was somebody else, this could have went way different and it would have been much easier. I was like, why? You know what I mean? Like, why go through the extra hassle? But it's like, ugh, because of who I am, because I actually care about folks, I guess I'll do this. And then I woke up mad. Like, why did I do that? I should have just. Anyway, that's part of this larger theme that has been slowly building up, but like really pertinent or really like in my face in this past week. And because I'm not so engrossed in an audiobook, now when I go for a walk or if I'm exercising or whatever, and I think and I spend time in ponderance, you could say, and reflection, now I have this space to like listen and to actually hold those internal dialogues and conversations rather than being like, oh, I need to focus on what's happening in the story. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's kind of sort of what's been going on. And I was gonna like go live and talk about it, but here I am now. So again, that's not necessarily the point of this. If it comes up, it comes up, right? 13 minutes in. I'm drinking like three different beverages. Welcome to It Is Where It Is, Ted Earl. It is what it is. Where it is what it is, and it ain't gonna be what it ain't gonna be. This is like so watery now, which might be a good thing because anyway, all right, let's go. But yeah, um, I had that dream a few nights ago, and it was one of those that really like sat with me. And so it was kind of hard to wake up from because it was just like present in my mind. And then some other stuff happened. And again, like I'm just so glad that I have people in my life that I can like trust to be vulnerable with, that I can also like trust their counsel and I can trust them to like honor that vulnerability. You know what I mean? Because it's a game changer for real. For real, for real. All right, that's it. That's enough. How many cards? Three cards. Okay. From four decks. See, as soon as I got the three cards, I was like, I did not think this through. How am I going to get three cards from four decks? Okay. The first one is from number four. Or no, Memento. Por favor. As I scooch and slide. Scooch and slide. And then uh, another four. Lots of fours. Excuse me. I'm getting one card. I don't know. We'll go for this one. Why not? Next is 2. Okay. And another 4. Ooh. That one. Perfect. Next is 3. Love that. And another 2. I guess I did talk about dreams. And lastly, is that number 1? Wow. I got 1 from each. That's cool. And then 3. Oh, I guess I could use this. Sure. Why not? Let's go for it. Now I'm supposed to use 3 cards. I have 1 tarot deck, 3 oracle decks. Which one of these am I not going to use? And we'll do it from top to bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4. Not going to use number 1. So we have 3 oracle decks. Oops. Which is fine. I've seen enough like swoopy haired people who like, do like one of these where half their face is whatever. I feel like what they don't say, hey Jennifer, how you doing? Janelle, sorry. Oh girl. Long time no see. How you been? I don't know. I saw J and E and N and my brain said Jennifer. Oh yeah. It's like if I feel like this reduces my field of vision. And the way that people wear hair, I wouldn't necessarily assume that that was the case. I'm like, if I do this, this is not opaque. Or this is not transparent or translucent. This is opaque. I can't see through that. Aww. You make me blush. All right. So I'm going to do 1 card from each. I'm using the Energy Oracle cards, the Places Oracle, and In Dreams. And, oh, perfect. I'll use this. Of course, number 4. I'm like, which deck do I use first? 1, 2, or 3? I get 4. All right, so one of the ways that I can use 4 decks, but only read 3 cards, is if one of them serves as a significator. Significators are like stand-ins, right? So you can always read a meaning in a significator, but they don't necessarily count towards the running total, right? What does that mean? I guess it depends, right? So if you're sitting down and you're getting a reading, let's say there's a card that is looked for that represents you. Now, if you are a specific zodiac sign or a certain gender of a certain age, and depending on the cards you use, it could be a card that represents that zodiac sign, or it could be whatever. But if you choose a card to represent the person that you're reading, or yourself, if you're reading yourself, then that card doesn't necessarily count towards the doesn't necessarily count towards the card total in the spread because it represents the person sitting on the other side, or you if you're reading for yourself. So it's almost like if we're talking about a birth chart, right? There are 9 planets, but the Earth is also there. And we don't include the Earth typically, especially if like you look at where the sun is. But the earth is there somewhere in the totality of everything, right? So cool. That's what they do. I almost want to say, ooh, that was a dirty flip. It almost flipped, but it flipped it right back over. I'll take it. Interesting. Ooh, wow. Wow, 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 wow. Dramatic much? Yes. I don't know. It's been such an interesting, like, week or so. Yeah, it's that anchor card. It's been an interesting week or so. I think it's been longer than that. And I feel like that, it does. It's fine. Let me breathe, and then we'll get into this. Well, it's relevant. The card that came out is the Ace of Wands, Salamander. And the thing about Salamander, to me, not only do we see the Salamander in motif or in some way within the suit of wands, but to me, salamander is also an element of regrowth, like a starfish. If you cut off the tail, it'll grow back. Sometimes, as a defense mechanism, they'll abandon their own tail so that they can make their getaway, and then the tail will regrow back. They leave behind something that they can stand to lose in order to ensure their survival or that they live to thrive another day. Now, I don't know if there is a conscientious salamander hunting animal that's like I can sustain myself off of the tail. So if I come up to the salamander, they ditch the tail, I can let them run away because it serves me to let that salamander regrow the tail and lose it again. Because if I eat the salamander, I eat once. But if I eat the tail of the salamander that they regrow, then I eat for many days, which is an odd perspective to take from the point of view of the predator, I guess. But there is a certain symbiotism. I want to say symbioticism, but I know the symbiotism is probably more correct. There is a certain symbioticism to that arrangement. Now, what's at the bottom of the deck, interestingly enough, is Justice, which is the Valkyrie. And the Valkyries are those who choose the worthy. They are the evaluators, those who, you know, go down in glorious ways. The Valkyries come down, swoop them up to Valhalla or wherever their destination is so that they can fight again. Right? I feel like there's something coming to mind that I don't 100% recall. Like, I feel like there was a warrior, I want to say a warrioress, that went down very valiantly in battle who wasn't chosen by a Valkyrie. And they were upset about it. But the Valkyries were like, we take souls for Odin so that they can fight again. Like being chosen isn't as glorious as it would seem. Like it's not necessarily a reward It's, oh, like they're like you can be further, you can be of more use. There's more use I can get out of you. And it was like the Valkyrie was trying to explain to the person that like they don't actually want to be chosen because now they can actually have peace in the afterlife, you know what I mean? And I feel like that was a thing, and I cannot recall at all what it was, or if my brain just like just spontaneously generated this whole whatever, right? Or if I'm downloading. Let me stop. I'm sorry. What's interesting is though, in combination, there's an energy here of something that is willingly sacrificed and then receiving so much more. Also, with the limited aggression of the salamander sacrificing its tail and the prey animal or the predator animal being completely satisfied with what was sacrificed, it does take me back to the combination of Stankness and Kanafa, where it was scented, tested, and then blood scented, where according to beliefs, we would think that whoever, whatever, wants us to spill blood to prove that we are whoever. But that is a test that is created by man that has limited whatever on what it is that that aspect of divinity like actually wants, right? Like let's say that there is an aspect of chaos and people think like, oh well, like this energy is associated with chaos, so I should go out and be chaotic and just mess stuff up for no reason, for the pure sake of confusion or whatever. And then the aspect of chaos is like people, you know, like who's like to live is chaotic enough. You never know what's gonna happen. It's just the randomness of life. It isn't necessarily, in this metaphor example, it isn't necessarily going out and sowing seeds of chaos and discord and confusion, but that's what we as people would interpret that as, could interpret that as. But the thing about that combination was that it didn't, like, it honored the divine, even if it didn't necessarily abide by the hierophantic law of man or the hierophantic understanding. It's like if the tail regrows back as like not pure gold, but um, thematically, pictorially, iconographically, is that the word? It's like if the salamander's tail grew back in gold, which this whole like line of whatever is interesting because of the dream I had last night. It is. And I was just like, what? Cool. This is the significator for this Ace of Wands and Justice. Ace of Wands and Justice is also an interesting combination because it has an almost Martian feel to it. It feels like somehow, some way, justice has become whoever is the coldest, most logical, and seemingly detached is the person who justice should rule in favor of, which historically, from point A to point B, for the systems that are in place make sense, because justice for people isn't necessarily real justice in the court of law of man, in the court of the law of man. Sometimes justice is more about upholding a certain status quo and preserving whatever than it is about actual justice, right? Because if someone has been greatly affected by something, why would emotionality or passion or anything else be any kind of indicator that they don't deserve to be listened to, respected, heard? Like, why would that person deserve less justice? Like in the court of the King Solomon, that was the very thing that helped him determine who the real mother was. The person that was like, yeah, let's just cut the baby in half. Like, excuse me? Hello? And yeah, I don't know. I think back on all the things where it's like, well, like let's not raise our voices, or let's have cool, calm, detached, emotionally neutral conversations about this thing that disproportionately affects some of us a lot more or less than others. But it's interesting to see these two here. Ace of Wands with Justice. And it's the Valkyrie. Of course, anyway, that's just the anchor. Three. I guess that's this. We get a place from the Places Oracle. This isn't necessary. It's very loosely inspired by what happened. Because I'm like listening to myself reading. I'm like, do I not pull any other cards? Is it really just this one? And then I did want to do a deep dive on one, but this is how we're doing it today. All right. One card is very much so preferable. I don't know. I think back to Una Impresa and how it's an entire company. It's like one Empress and then an entire company. And the company of the Empress, so it is low key giving not Valhalla. I never remember. It's giving me Freya's, like Odin collected souls through the Valkyrie, but Freya also had a hole. Folkvanger. Oh, well, Folkvanger is a meadow or field ruled over by the goddess Freya, where half of those that die in combat go upon death. This says Sessrumnir. Freya's Hall is called Sessrumnir, located in the meadow of Folkvanger. So Folkvanger is the field. Sessrumnir is the place. Excuse me, and this is AR overview. I feel like I always got to clarify this is AI overview because it's their summarization. This is not me going into the information, even if the information is whatever. Half of all who die bravely in battle, with the other half going to Odin's Hall Valhalla. Sessrumnir is described as a great and fair hall, great and fair with justice. Okay. Possibly a sprawling palace or a ship within the meadow, and the name also applies to a ship. So if we see the ship, if the ship is a place, that'll be confirmation. Oh, Folkvanger also receives those who die from other causes. So it's not just the warriors. Okay. Okay. All right. All right. All right. All right. Cool. All right. A place. How do you say a place? Un lugar? I don't know how to say that in any other language. I don't remember how to say place in Japanese. I know how to say there. Soko, Coco, Soko, Asoko, here, there, over there. That's city. Um, I don't know if Coco Soko, for some reason, Coco Soko Asoko is standing out to me. So Coco Soko Asoko is like here, there, and like way over there. But it's also, if there's a conversation and a person says Coco, it's like near the person speaking. If the person says Soko, it's near the person that they're speaking to. And if they say Asoko, then it's like at a distance from both of them. And of course, I don't know how or if that would be relevant, but it feels important. You know what? I'm going to give this three shuffles and then I'm going to pull from the top, middle, and bottom. I know. I know. There are so many times I come on here with a plan and it falls apart. I remember that one time I went live with Rob and he had like such a great plan and I just felt like I was ruining it. I was like, I'm trying my best to. I was like 24 hours no sleep, and I was like, I'm trying my best to like remember what we're doing. I'm sure it was fine. I trust that whoever gets whatever they need, and if there's something that they don't have, then they either A, they didn't need it, or B, they didn't need it from me. And sometimes we think we need things that we don't actually need. Sometimes we confuse a want for a need. Sometimes I'm just not it. You know what I mean? All right. I'll do two and a cut. Coco, Soko, and Asako. Living room is at the bottom of the deck. Heart of the home, comfort and relaxation. I love that comfort and relaxation with the tone of Folkvanger versus Valhalla. Coco is bus stop, waiting zone, patience, which is how I laid the cards out. It would be near the salamander. Soko, which is near the other person. Oh, these are significators, and I have two significators. Okay, it works. So on the table, it would be near justice, is workplace, hub of productivity, ambition, and collaboration. I love the ambition when we have the Ace of Wands. And I love the collaboration, especially with Folkvanger. There's limited, I don't know much about Folkvanger, but I know that in Valhalla, it may be comfort and stuff like that, but it's at the end of the day, girl, you're going to be one of the many, 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 many that's just fodder at Ragnarok. But we have collaboration, and I love that. There's something interesting with Valkyrie energy being collaboration. It's interesting in general, and Rio Karukian philosophy. It makes sense. Now, the Asoko, what is far from both the Ace of Wands Salamander and Justice the Valkyrie, is gas station, essential pit stop, take a break and refuel. And when I saw this as the Asoko, I was like, I could read this in a way of if we are the Ace of Wands Salamander, are in a position of patience and waiting. We're waiting at the bus stop. Things are going to start moving in one way or another. The Valkyrie is represented by the workplace. Again, ambition and collaboration. meaning that there's like work to be done. And then what is far away from both is this gas station, which is like a rest stop, right? Take a break and refuel. So it's like you're in a moment of stillness, things will be picking up, they'll get like maybe very busy, and then at the end of the day, like there'll be a break, right? Once the work is done, but it's just a pit stop. So it's not necessarily like retirement energy, right? It's not necessarily there's this one last thing to do and then you'll be done for life. So if things get particularly busy or hectic, just know that it won't necessarily be that way always. But, and the thing about ambition, when you look for ambition, it's like, it's almost like I could imagine for some, like if this was interview type process, una empresa, a company, if they're hiring, and if they say like, we're looking for someone like ambitious, and they use a lot of that language, I could see it's motivated by personal experience. I can see like, okay, if you're looking for someone ambitious, I'm almost getting a vibe that it's going to be one of those more than 40 hours. It's going to be one of those like, well, we're all very passionate and we all do extra hours and none of us see our families and we never sleep. And it's just, if this is the team, if this is the custom, the norms, and you're on this team, then you're kind of expected to also sacrifice. So it could be one of those like potential red flags. Like, but it's like if someone, like if ambition and collaboration, ambition implies that there's going to be not necessarily a lot of work, but there's a certain like pace and there's a certain energy that a clarifier or delineator of ambition sort of, I want to say intones, but I don't know if that's the word that I necessarily want. Is that a word? Let's ask. It doesn't matter. Let's not get lost. But with collaboration, there's also a connotation that it's not one person that is like making all of these different demands and you just like do what you're told. You know what? It's like collaboration invites participation. And a truly collaborative environment also invites like um, an acknowledgement or a valuing of different approaches and opinions and life experiences and stuff like that. Right. So in this collaboration, it's almost like someone is a specialist in something via that passion, or because of that passion they become a specialist. And like this collaboration is to, like, they're looking for a specialist, but a specialist, it's almost like an energy of someone who has their finger on the pulse of a thing, or someone who, it's like, they live and breathe it. They know, not only do they know like how to get the job done, but they also know who to talk to, how to have conversations to figure out like all of the, whatever the word is, like the concerns, the needs of like the stakeholder or whatever. Who is my sign of business? Science is Sagittarius. I feel like Capricorn would be too easy. Maybe it is Capricorn. Um, and then it's like, then there will be a break after. But the break is far from what's interesting about the break, though. What's interesting about the gas station is because this is Asokol, it is far from both the salamander and the Valkyrie. And there's almost this assumption, my assumption, that because what is close to the salamander is the bus stop, which is like patience and waiting, it's like I wouldn't think that it's that far from like taking a break, because there's a implication that if you're like waiting or if you're patient, you're not necessarily doing anything, or if you are doing something, it's like filling the time until the bus comes. So maybe that in and of itself is an implication that although there is a time of waiting and although there is a time of patience, there are other things that are happening that it's like it wouldn't be designated as off time, right? So like let's say that someone works whatever job and like they like on the plane or something, they're like talking about business or they're doing work but not necessarily on the clock. And if you submit your hours where you still get compensated for that because it's work, then it's like that energy of like, okay, even though the person is like in this period of waiting or at the bus stop, like there are still things that they're doing. So that counts as whatever productive time. I forget what you call it. Oh, snap. Not the disapproving looks. They just don't get it yet. Find you an Aquarius. Maybe they'll get it. Maybe. Imagine Aquarius being like, "Oh, that's out there even for me." I'm just kidding. I'm sorry, that's not funny. Aquarius would sextile the Sag, but square the Scorpio. That sucks, though. Interesting. Okay, where do we go next? There's one and two. One. Oh my gosh. Cool. Cool beans. I don't even have to do the whole if it's even, it's one. If it's two, it's odd. So it did the die. It played nice after the initial. How am I supposed to get four cards from three decks? Hello. I'm gonna do the same. I think for the rest of these, I'm gonna do the Coco Soco Soco. Now I'm questioning the End Dream Oracle for this, but we'll see. All right, I give it three and a cut. Oh, interesting. The card that came out, number 13, Financial Constraints. Now, 13, speaking of Scorpio, 13 is death, is ruled by Scorpio. 13, Friday the 13th, also giving spooky scorpionic vibes. Oh, I guess we'll put this one. Where do I put this? We'll put this here. Coco, Storm Warning, number 10. Bus stop and Storm Warning. What a combination. Soko, Decision, Indecision, number 8, with the workplace. And Asoko, number Angel of Balance, number 48. So I love Angel of Balance in the vein of after this like intense period of whatever, then it's gonna like calm down, it's gonna peter out in that gas station, take a break, a well deserved rest. Um, then like things come into balance, right? So it's almost giving sprint week energy, but not necessarily a sprint, right? Under that is Cornucopia, number 11. The first thing that comes to mind with cornucopia is oh, the first thing that comes to mind with cornucopia is fruit of the loom and the Mandela effect of, is there a cornucopia in the fruit of the loom logo, or was it just the fruit? Because apparently it's just the fruit. There's no cornucopia. And I thought, I'm in the camp of, wasn't there a cornucopia? What's at the bottom of this deck? Now, serpent, Echidna has a certain Lilith-like energy because Echidna is the mother of many monsters in Greco-Roman mythology. Like they say that Lilith was the mother of like a lot of monsters and evils and stuff like that. But because that's on the Four of Pentacles, for some reason, the phrase "an idle mind is the devil's playground" came to mind. And if that's the case, it would make sense why the bus stop has an almost busy work. It's not quite busy work, but it's like things to preoccupy the mind. Productive, well, maybe not even productive. It doesn't necessarily have to be. It could be. I mean, if we're billing it, it should be theoretically, right? But it's like in that time of waiting, in that time of patience, in that time of before the Valkyrie arrives, there are it's like things to do to keep the mind from going idle. Not only to keep the mind from going idle, but also like prep work, gaining relevant life experiences. You could call it like soft skills or whatever. It's that kind of energy. So, again, with the energy, with the vibe of the Valkyrie being that workplace, we're looking for ambition and collaboration. It's like there's a at least a very slight implication that things are going to be like fairly busy and maybe a little crazy. So, like the storm warning with the bus stop, what's also part of this is like when the bus comes, it's going to be like go, 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 right? With storm warning. But I don't, from certain elements, sure. The bus stop is also shelter in the storm, right? So it's giving the energy of like if you're on the road and the tornado sirens go off, there is a place like a ditch or something that you can lie low in as the storm like as the tornado like blows over, right? Again, lowest hanging fruit, it's just like that confirmation of like things are about to get very, very, very busy. On the other side, what's interesting is there's indecision in the workplace. And so, if there is indecision in the workplace, and if your ambition has made you a subject matter expert of sorts, it's like you're also coming in as a tiebreaker. Not only that, there's almost, again, low hanging fruit. It's like there's a lot of different things that have stalled out because of this indecision. And so part of the energy of like things being so busy and so hectic for a while, it's almost like, well, now that there's an expert here, now there's maybe you're not an expert, now that there's someone with the passion and the ambition and the drive to do something that also is a true collaborator and isn't just a semi inactive participant. Like now the needle can really start to move forward on all of these different things that have been, oh, what's the thing? Like chokehold is coming to my mind, but that's not the word. Bottlenecked. It's like there's a bottleneck somewhere. Things that have been stalled out. Let's keep it simple. And so a lot of that may be like being a decision maker. And depending on someone's background, they may not necessarily be comfortable making decisions and choices and making certain calls or contributing and collaborating in certain ways, right? It's almost very much, I feel like I talked about this recently, but it's almost very much one of those like, well, I'm not an expert, I'm not a whatever, so my opinion or perspective is less valuable than all of the wonderfully brilliant, amazing people on payroll. And it's like, with all of these wonderfully like amazing geniuses, it's like if current staff alone were susceptible, if current staff alone were sufficient, then there wouldn't be all of these things stalled out. There wouldn't be an energy of indecision if someone being invited in as a collaborator is viewed as like a non, you know what I mean? A non whatever. And so, in the idle mind, that could have been devil energy. Maybe part of the bus stop or the work that was done at the bus stop was to become more confident or to become more self-assured or to learn to put yourself out there or to have a voice, or even if you're nervous or even if you don't whatever, say the thing that maybe you think is glaringly blaringly obvious because apparently no one else has seen it. You know what I mean? Like part of that could have been the busy work that occurred at the bus stop, so that, and that's also because it's the Valkyrie, right? The Valkyries select those who are worthy. So if you're selected by a Valkyrie, you know that you are worthy, even if you question your own worth, or even if you question your own ability to do whatever. If you're selected by a Valkyrie type energy, you are selected for a reason. Trust in the work that you've done, trust in the journey, especially if you've been on your walk with the divine, right? They're not going to. I was just thinking about that for some reason. There's a lot of stuff. There are a few things that divine energy will do that devil energy won't necessarily do. First of all, if you're doing too much, if you're doing way too much, and you start digging ditches, speaking of ditches in the storm, but now like you're stuck in the hole, like devil energy is not going to alert you to that like at all. I'm assuming. Devil energy is like, yeah, just keep digging the ditch. That's literally that whole like digging your own grave type of whatever. That's devil energy. Divine energy will be like, okay, like take a step back, breathe, reassess the situation. Maybe something isn't necessarily how you quite perceive it. Reevaluate, make sure you are operating in like divine energy will have you making those checks or will prompt you when maybe you're doing a little too much, right? That's for one. Another thing is like the energy of the divine will prepare you for things, whatever that preparation looks like. And there's a lot of times where we get everything that we need, but not necessarily what we want to feel comfortable in, whatever. But if you know your journey and you've been journeying your journey, again, it's that like the Valkyrie don't select the unworthy. And it's almost like that, let that be a comfort until you build up enough courage and confidence within yourself. Let that be enough comfort to keep you moving when doubt or indecision or insecurity or whatever rolls in, right? Financial constraints here especially in the energy of like workplace, especially in the energy of una empresa. I feel like I didn't roll that R fully. It's because of the indecision, it's because of the stagnation, because of the stalemate, because of things stalling out that like this financial constraints energy is here. Scorpio season is coming up in a few weeks. It feels like Libra season literally just started. I mean, but I guess it started. Oh, it's October now. I need to change my calendar. I got to go to the restroom. I'll be right back. Contemplate or not. Wow, I just thought about it. I had a dream. I thought about that dream recently too. I had a dream that there was like a company announcement. There was a company that was, I don't know how to, there were the leadership. There was a company that was going through like a structural change because the senior leadership in that company was leaving. And there was a meeting to decide who would basically inherit that company. And there were, of course, a lot of people. Sorry, sorry. That one reading just popped into my mind. There were a lot of people that displayed interest, but the host or the MC of the event was like looking for specific traits, right? And it was one of those like things are going to be under new management. There's a lot of like vying for a position of advantage or whatever. Anyway. So we have the angel of balance. This angel of balance, there is the low hanging fruit of eventually things will come to a place of balance after the backlog is cleared, everything that's been stalled is put into motion, stuff like that, right? When the, excuse me, consequence or repercussions of that imbalance, or not imbalance, that indecision are like recouped and played out, then things will like slow down, right? But angel of balance, it's giving me an energy. It's almost very, there's like a thought, right? And then it's like all of these supporting things, boom, 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 boom. I'm like, oh yeah. Um, oh, I can't afford to go on too many tangents because then I'll forget. Oh, depending on what this energy is, and it's a Valkyrie. Valkyries collect for, in Norse mythology, the divine. There is the Valhalla, Ragnarok, and then there's the Sesrumnir in Folkvanger for whatever Freya is doing. There's an energy here. It's almost like what's coming to mind. I was thinking about there's this energy of it's like the divine needs basically like the divine needs human participation in order to really move and shift certain things, right? It's one thing to invoke our free will or one thing to say whatever. It's one thing to say a bunch of words, right? Because again, we're looking, the divine is looking for the Valkyrie. The Valkyrie is looking for both ambition and collaboration. Ambition alone is not enough. Like they're also looking for collaboration, which is like a productive effort. It's not just words. There are a lot of passionate, emotionally driven, emboldened words that are spoken, but actions that fall flat. So nothing really changes, right? Ambition and collaboration is what's looked for. So it's almost like there are certain things where the divine is looking for human participation because to claim and declare, manifest, affirm one thing with our free will is one thing, but it's almost like if they're, it's like the word alone allows for so much, but the words plus actions allows for even greater. And it's making me think of two things. For some reason, I was in the Bible because somebody had a license plate. I was with my mom and we were trying to figure out like what if it was a scripture. And it was about when God had told Noah to build that ark. God was like, there was some stuff going down on earth between the children of angels and the daughters of man, between it was just like in the in Old Testament, God was like, wow, like I gave them free will and this is what they do with it. And it said in the book, he regretted creating the folks. And we know he sent the flood to wipe the slate clean, but he saw Noah. He was like, you, you, out of all of this mess, you build an ark. Here are your specifications. Make it out of this wood. Do this, do that, because it's gonna happen. And you win the lottery. You get to survive. So it's almost like because the ratio was so heavily favored towards one thing, it was like God was like, I'm gonna spare the one and their family, that I'm gonna spare everybody else. But with this, it's almost like if there's again, it's that energy. Maybe that's why also there's the energy of like a lot of work up front. And like we live in a time, we live in an era where global devastation does not have to be an act of divine intervention. We literally have the technology to do it ourselves. You know what I mean? So this could be more almost like preventative in a way of there are so many ways that things could go, reasons why things may go one way or another or whatever. And because free will has been so widely used to get us to where we are globally and collectively. Even free will with no regard to structures of power and access to whatever and all kinds of backing and whatever, right? Because it is like created by man. Maybe after he promised to never flood, maybe that's why he promised to never flood the earth again. So when we get in that position where he's like, you know what, maybe we just start over. He promised not to wipe the board no more. So now we have to, if we want to avert a certain whatever, we have to be the ones to show up. And more than just word, more than just affirmation, more than just empty presence. And again, a lot of the affirmation, a lot of the words, a lot of that stuff was part of the work that's being done to prepare us for what is to come. That's part of like the bus stop storm warning. That's what more and more largely, more and more collectively, we come to these awarenesses of like what's like really happening. We come to these positions where we become ambitious and where we become capable of collaboration to alter our collective global fate, right? And it's like with the rest that lies far off, not only will there be balance there that we so desperately need or seek or whatever, but again, it feels like because of acknowledgement acknowledgement and honoring of free will and stuff like that, if we use our free will to do whatever, and then some aspect of the divine shows up to change the course of events, changing those things would invalidate our free will because it would remove us from the effects that result from the causes that we put into place, right? It can be seen as an invalidation of our free will. Plus, things that we don't personally, it's like the results are different when involvement is different, right? And this is like in, I know that's almost like very macroscopic, but it goes down to the micro too. Ooh, I guess we'll stop there and I'll cut. Something just flipped over. Who is it? I forgot they don't have names. I would have to use the book. There's a butterfly though. Number 913 was Saturday. Uh, the 14th was the last quarter moon. 913. I don't know. Maybe they're just numbers. Maybe they don't mean anything. There's a butterfly. The butterfly with financial constraints and the butterfly loosely. It looks like it's a little bit more burgundy than brown. There's some brown in there. It's like the colors of the butterfly could be seen or interpreted as a reference to the doors, right? With financial constraints, also with the Four of Pentacles, there's an implication. No, this door is open. It's just empty. It's a door that's empty to a door that's open to an empty cupboard. I was gonna say there's an implication that the door is closed. The doors of abundance are not open. The cornucopia. The status of the door is changing. Oh, 1 second. Oh, no momento, por favor. I'm so sorry. All right, I apologize. I'm back. I'm back. So, should I read it? I'll read it. 9 is renew, air, external events. External events. A new beginning is just around the corner. Get ready for a change with financial constraints. Very much so in line with the energy. A new beginning is around the corner, just around the corner. Get ready for a change. The quote by Confucius: those who would like to be constant in happiness and wisdom must change often. Okay. I was thinking about that the other day. And I guess I'll try not to be necessarily too specific in the exact context in which the thought was spawned. But oftentimes when we seek to, I just saw a reel. I just saw a reel. It was a speaker, preacher. I don't know if it was a pastor, a bishop, a minister. It was a preacher. Someone saying that in the Bible, God talks about like how unwise it is to seek glory or fulfillment or happiness or whatever in yesterday. And if the world, even if we stagnate, excuse me, or even if we have a preference for a certain era, time, whatever, the world around us like the clock continues to move forward. It continues to evolve the world. It continues to change. And if we are to interact with the world in any way, then we must change as well. Or at the very least, we have to be in some kind of harmonic dynamic with the current state of the world. And if we are to sustain it, then we will continuously be current, right? Coco, bus stop, storm warning, number 17. What an interesting energy. Sokol, number 22. Look at not the Valkyrie with the trumpet. And then Asoko, number 8. I love this, especially with that angel of balance. There's a symmetry to this card. Bottom of the deck is number 26, which is a strength energy. I don't think I've ever seen this card before. I want to look at that one first. 26 is perceive, learn, be aware, fire, and action. Get ready to be influenced by a strong individual. Start learning. Chinese proverb is quoted as learning is a treasure that will follow its owner everywhere. Learning is a treasure that will follow its owner everywhere. That it makes me think of there are quotes where it'll be someone who's like they can take this and they can take that and they can take all of these other things, but they can't take what we've learned. They can't take how we've grown. They can't take those immaterial sort of things. And it's interesting because with the bus stop, it was that like soft skill type energy. Even if the hard skills, technical skills, whatever, don't apply, the soft skills will. Transferable skills will, even if the situation and environment changes. Those things will still be of value and of benefit, even if the world changes, even if an industry changes drastically and dramatically. Some of those things will still be beneficial. And I don't know if it's the lion that teaches the lady or the lady that teaches the lion or both. Because maybe the mark of a good teacher is someone who's able to learn from those they teach. Also, fire in action when we have the Ace of Wands. Salamander is interesting. Perceive, learn, be aware. Oh, that was the first one. The first energy was that of like the things that no one can ever take. The second one is I don't remember who in Greco Roman mythology it was particularly, but there was someone, I believe, associated with healing. It may have been knowledge that was basically kidnapped and forced to teach, forced to give his knowledge to the heir or the son of a king. And it was like the conditions of his release were predicated upon him giving all of his knowledge away. And one of the last things he did was, I believe I could be misremembering, he told the student to like spit in his mouth. I feel like that's extreme. I feel like it was something like that. But also, when I say it, I'm like, was it really? But what happened was when he did that, all of the knowledge that he had gained, he lost. So it's almost like there is a way, and maybe that goes back to like devil energy versus divine energy. There is a way to acquire, there is a way to accumulate, there is a way to learn, and for those treasures to be lost when ordinarily they wouldn't be. And maybe that's one of the things that makes devil energy so enticing. One of the many things is that up front, it doesn't always seem like, or it rarely seems like it requires as much energy, attention, effort, consideration. You could, yeah. So 17 is the coco, which is, all of these are different, which I love. Love to interact, which is air external events. More air external events. Interesting. You might meet your soulmate. Okay. Storm warning. Your soulmate approacheth. And I love that it says you might meet your soulmate. If that don't feel like carrot on the stick, you might. I don't know. One way to find out. And do the work and see. You know you're in love when you can't fall asleep because reality is finally better than your dreams. Dr. Seuss. What is interesting about this is it's almost like this is the person, and then this on the side is, you could say, the intuition or discernment. That is like some aspect. That's the thing that tells us what work to do, right? That's the energy that helps us prepare for whatever is to come. And so I think sometimes there is a certain level of self awareness or self knowing that is not necessarily required, but almost a prerequisite to living a dream. Because we could stumble upon it for sure. And sometimes it happens like that. Sometimes we do something and then we find out how much we love it. Um, but it's almost like for reality to be better than the dream and for us to live that or work towards that, we have to know what it is that we really truly desire beyond survival, beyond what society may tell us that we should desire, beyond our response, or what's the word? It's not response. What's it's? I feel like it starts with an R. What's the word? Reaction. Besides our reaction and our response to what society tells us we should want, because sometimes society, like we may know that there are certain societal pressures, and because we are whoever, we're like, I'm not going to listen to society. I'm going to go for the opposite. When that may not necessarily be what we want either. But because the pressure can be or is perceived to be so great, we just like go the other way. But that may not be where our happiness lies just because it's the opposite of what society tells us we should want. Because there are some times where we go against the system and we're still not happy and we're still not fulfilled, because it's almost like that was the extent of the thought and consideration that was applied. Oh, you're telling me to go left? Well, I'm going to go right. Well, have you considered like going straight or just standing still or turning back? Turning back is a little controversial with the whole like, if the world is continuously changing and evolving, then we should too at least expect to change and evolve in turn if we live in the world or interact with the world in any kind of way. So maybe not go back, but you can go straight. There's like 180 degrees that we can choose from because the other 180 of that 360 is kind of back a little bit. There are 360 degrees. It ain't got to be straight left. It could be at an angle. It could be what? If left is west, it could be north by northwest. You know what I mean? But when our whole thing is to just do the opposite, we become just as easy to manipulate, just as easy to control than anyone who abides. Like reverse psychology is a thing, has been a thing for a very, very, very long time. And it is not hard to figure out who is obstinate, who is going to do the opposite of what you say. It is not hard at all. It takes one, two, maybe three interactions to figure out every time I say do this one thing, that person does literally the exact opposite. So if I really want them to do what I want them to do, I'll just tell them to do the opposite. And because they're so obstinate, and that's literally their entire thing, then they'll do the thing that I actually want them to do. And again, that's why like discernment and that's why presence and that's why like active involvement becomes so pivotal and important to us really living the dream, because sometimes maybe there are certain aspects of what is sold that we actually like align to or like, but the way we go about getting it may be different, right? Like if we want a lot of money, but we don't want to be some CEO, work for a company, establish a company that takes advantage of people, whatever. It's like you can have a lot of money and be an ethical business. You know what I mean? And you can, you know, And I think again, like that part of understanding and knowing deeply who we are and what we truly like value and appreciate is pivotal in living the dream. That could also be whisperings of things to come. But depending on who we are and how we're motivated, when there are whisperings of things to come, it's almost like there may be certain things that are kind of omitted, right? Maybe. And I'm, because it's like, imagine like getting a fortune that's like, oh, you're going to be a millionaire. And you're just like, oh, wow. But it doesn't tell you, like, you're going to work these kind of hours for this many years and you're going to get this brilliant idea for a new thing that no one's going to really get for like X amount of time until someone dies. And then after all this work over Y amount of time, then you'll be a million. It's like that doesn't, it's not that it doesn't sell, but it's a harder sell for us when we sometimes, depending on who and how we are, when it's like when we know how much work we're going to have to do up front to get the thing right. Next, the circle of number 22. 22 is, oh wait, what was that? Love to interact. That was air external events. 22 is conceive, create, implement, fire action. More fire action. Interesting. I haven't even been glancing over at the TV to make sure that my video didn't freeze. This is fire action. Let your creative potential take control. Because, and again, this is with ambition and collaboration. They're looking for that Ace of Wands fire. This is a justice that does not discard passion or humanity, quite frankly, honestly. It's not that it necessarily looks for it, but sometimes that is the best indicator when it comes to certain um, trials or events or circumstances. Let your creative potential take control. Always dream. This is a quote by William Faulkner. Always dream and shoot higher than you know you can do. Do not bother just to be better than your contemporaries or predecessors. Try to be better than yourself. This pulls on, I think it was, I feel like this energy has come up. It's come up with that Nine of Cups energy. There's a Nine of Cups energy that would pop up every now and then. It's like adjacent to that, but not necessarily that energy exactly. With the let your creative potential take control, that potential is big, especially because there's been that energy of like the bus stop being this time of preparation. And potentially, some people have it in spades. Maybe your Leo energy is very healthy. And when you are recruited for something, you know exactly what to do. You are that person and you know it. And so for you, it's easy. Sometimes we get to that point eventually after some experiences. And it's interesting that this is partially an investment in potential. It doesn't have to be, obviously. Does not, it could be an investment in who someone already is. But part of this is an investment in potential. And it's interesting that someone's standing here with the horn, right? Because it's low key giving judgment energy. 22 is after the world. After judgment is the world, 22 is after that. Now, depending on the tarot system you use or follow, sometimes the fool, although designated as zero, sits after the world. Sometimes it starts at the magician and it ends in the fool, rather than starting at the fool and ending at the world. I've come across that information. I don't know if I've necessarily myself come across a deck that follows that ordering, but sometimes the fool is after the world. And so it's this energy of it's all again, but that's that energy of human participation. With the angel of balance. And again, along the lines of that promise that the divine made to never flood or destroy or intervene again. So you could say that it wouldn't be Archangel Gabriel that blows the trumpet to signify anything. It would be a person who is blessed by, anointed by, working with, designated by the divine Archangel Gabriel. But because of non intervention and because of free will, if before the very, very end, if that horn or trumpet would be to blow, it would be an individual because the divine promised not to intervene, specifically within that theology, right? I don't know if all aspects of the divine have made that promise to not intervene in such drastic ways. But judgment, like not unlike, I'll say judgment, not unlike justice. It isn't necessarily always the same because individuals are different, cases are different, motivations are different, realities, repercussions, events as they unfold, effects of certain causes are different, right? What it's one thing for something to be like a potential danger. This could have potentially led to all of these other things, and it's a different thing when that danger becomes a reality, right? The stakes are a little bit higher when things actually happen versus when they could have gone sideways. And it's like it's a judgment, but it's not judgment and judgment day that is necessarily like fiery brimstone, the destruction of everything. It could be judgment that is very much so the opposite. Because judgment and justice in and of themselves don't necessarily mean the end of everything as we well it could be the end of everything as we know it with the butterfly, but it doesn't have to be in a fiery destructive way. It can be in a really gorgeous beautiful way. I can pick up the cards. Hello. Right. And so maybe judgment day is the larger collective humanity is like, you know what, enough is enough. We now know that, the inalienable rights that were held to be self-evident hundreds of years ago now extend to people the world over. And so we as a collective humanity decide to do different. And then the world is changed. Right. And this coming off of, again, the, and it's interesting because it's like Ganesh. energy, the energy of Lord Ganesha, is to remove roadblocks or to establish them if need be. And I don't remember the specific L that would, of the Elohim, I guess, the specific L that would sort of sit equivalent to the remover of obstacles, the maker of ways, the opener of paths and potentials or stuff like that. But that's what that collaboration is designed to go towards, right? Clearing the backlog. And biblically, Noah was one person, literally one person out of many. If the ratio were different, then maybe there wouldn't have been as great of a need or demand for the purifying energy of a storm, right? Didn't it rain for like 40 days and 40 nights? Maybe it could have been one day, or maybe there would have been a bunch more arcs, right? Finally, Ahsoka is number 8. Again, I love that these are all different. Look for harmony. Oh my gosh. You see this number 8. Look for harmony and balance. What is this with? If not the angel of balance, which is 48. 48 is a 12. 12 may not be here. No, it's not. It's not here. 13 is here. 11 is here, but the 12 is missing. Earth, material world. Confidence returns, life gains order, and balance is restored. I love this energy. So it's present, but it is the Asokol, meaning it's both far from the salamander and the Valkyrie. And it's interesting because it almost reads a little Valhalla y. But Valhalla is an attempt to use the worthy to win a war, to win Ragnarok. Maybe the energy of Folkvanger and Sisrumnir, I've already forgotten. Maybe the energy of Folkvanger is to prevent it from ever happening. Right? So maybe the souls designated by this Valkyrie are the Noahs. And I don't know if there's a quota or it's like once there's so many Noah type energies, then we don't need a whole flood. You know what I mean? If there's only one Noah and billions of people, Noah, you can build an ark. You know what I mean? Build an ark, get your animals, make sure your family is good. You're one in literally billions. Sorry, girl. You're going to be on this boat for 40 days. But when you get off the boat, the world's going to be so much better. Right? Anyway, the quote by Wayne Mueller, your life is not a problem to be solved, but a gift to be opened. Interesting. With the gas station and the angel of balance, your life is not a problem to be solved, but a gift to be opened. It's like when God created the heavens and the earth, when God created humanity to enjoy all of it. It was a gift to be savored and reveled in, but it has become a chore or a struggle or riddled with so many problems and seemingly so little actually viable solutions that don't lead to further problems or that don't come at the expense of someone else living life. Like that is what we have made the world into. And it is the sum total of free choice will across multiple generations for who knows how many years. I gotta go to the restroom again. This is it. When I come back, I'm gonna get final cards. All right. This video is not sponsored by the songs that you didn't hear. Yeah. Yeah. That's it. Um, I feel like so the dream I had last night. For some reason, the element of water has been very interesting for a while in my dreams. And whenever it comes to the element of water, there have been times where it was like it was like under a house there were these two rivers that ran in different directions that met and pooled under this property. But more often than not, it hasn't been like, I guess you could say the water and dreams have been energies of like private property, private beaches, private whatever. But last night I had a dream. There was like a I don't fully recall the whole dream, but there was like a plant or something. And not like a power plant or a manufacturing plant, like an organism. There was a plant or something. And then we were like underground and somebody did something. They like tapped something or something like that. Like tap as in like when you tap a spigot in a tree and you get sap. Or when you tap a keg and you get whatever is inside a keg. They had like tapped something or something. And all of a sudden it just started like flooding. And I'm like, is it supposed to do that? And they were like, So yeah, like I said, like the element of water in my dreams has never been like public sort of whatever. And somebody tapped something because of this plant, and it just like started to flood. That was like the beginning of what I remember in that dream. And then towards the end of the dream, the part where I was like, it was very strange, but once I saw it, it made sense. There were like giants that were roaming around, but there was a procession of giants, but I don't remember who or what was in the lead because the energy, the person, the whatever, because they were in front of the procession of giants, it made sense. And some of the people were like folks that I recognized in the dream, right? And it was so interesting because somebody made a comment to me, like an offhand comment. When they made the offhand comment, I didn't get it. But then later I was like, oh my gosh, what? Anyway, that's a complete aside. I saw that person and the person, and I was like, oh, like this is the thing that you were getting ready for. And again, I don't remember what, like who or what led that procession, but there was a procession of giants. There's publicly available like waters. I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening? Maybe nothing, maybe everything. But it's interesting because when I was on the treadmill today, for some reason, I was thinking about how we become giants. And I'll just say there can be a temptation that when we think of ascension, we think of levitation, right? Like we float off, up off of the ground and we're in the sky and then we shoot off like rockets or whatever, like the stars that we are. Um, but when we become giants, we reach heights that are just as high, and we don't have to sacrifice our grounding or our footing to do so. Because sometimes, and then that made me think of harmonic transfiguration or whatever in the magical dimensions, oracle cards, and activators. How we saw that harmonic transformation, but with higher perspective of, and it read like how much like limited good, especially with this energy of like, and the court of justice discrediting the passionate because we're expected to be whatever. And obviously the systems that benefit right from them, especially when it comes to maintaining a status quo, right? If all someone has to do to discredit you is make you upset, and literally there are so many things that they do that affect you that make you upset, that is not a fight that I'm not going to say it's not a fight that you can win, but it's definitely one that is not stacked in your favor. And again, that's wild. But anyway, what was I talking about? I don't even remember. I went on a tangent too far. But yeah, there was like a procession of giants, and I was like, oh my gosh. And oh, I was talking about that. Oh yeah, and then I was thinking about it after, and I was like, there are so many stories, so many tellings, and so many belief systems of either gods who personally incarnate on Earth to get a feel and a vibe for things, or of like Jesus, who was the Son of God, who incarnated and lived a full life on Earth, to at the end of his life be like, okay, like, girl, it's kind of rough down there. So maybe some of the folks that ended up living downstairs deserve a second chance or deserve like a reevaluation because, and again, it was like with that higher perspective, there's so much that it doesn't and can't do for like the human condition or the real life day to day. That's why we need Gemini in the zodiac wheel and not just Sagittarius in the tower coming up with all of these theories that are brilliant, but that may not actually work in real life or that are more complicated because of the forces and factors of real life, everyday life, and interconnectedness. In the laboratory, it's easy to, number one, limit the noise or to dictate and determine the interactions and the forces, different forces that are present. So yeah, like even Jesus, even like avatars had to be made for people to get like for the divine to get boots on the ground, viewpoint, vantage point, understanding to then make corrections or evaluations or changes to whatever or to intervene, right? Wasn't stuff done from beyond the clouds. Anyway, so yeah, I was like, wow. I was like, what? And I wish I could remember. I wish I could remember what was in front of those because I was so confused, like watching giant people just like walk around. And then I was like, oh, like that thing is in front. It makes sense. Anyway, we'll see. Right? We'll live life. We'll see. All right. Final places Oracle card. Ooh, 2 hours. Oh, that was. It was a fairly clean flip that made a lot of noise. And it's only one card. I kind of expected more. Maybe it was the title card. The title card is here right next to the card that flipped. I don't know if it also flipped because this title card is double sided. Bottom of the deck is road, traveled paths, embrace the journey. What a beautifully elegant and very simple way to summarize all of this. Embrace the journey. Excuse me. Oh, I'm starting to sweat. You see all that sweat on my brow? Can you see the sweat? Wait, it's like, yeah, it's sweat under there. Maybe it's because my hair is on my face now. Oh, oh, I put the cards away. Hello. So the card that flipped over is Fire Station. City's first responders, readiness to respond. City's first responders is so interesting because we saw the city. I think the city like made noise before I pulled cards because living room was at the bottom of the deck. We saw the city, and now here's city's first responders. What is city? Now I need to see what city is. There are some of these cards I still haven't gotten yet, which is fine. There's the village. The village is in the city. That in Dream Oracle made me a little nervous. City is economic powerhouse, diverse opportunities. It is so interesting that city is economic powerhouse, where financial constraints was the card that came out. But if we're talking about a changing, evolving, dynamic Earth and our experience on it, there are plenty of cities that used to be economic powerhouses that are no more because maybe the industry shifted or a river dried up or like waterways aren't the only or predominant method of travel anymore. We have roadways and airways. City is in between office area of productivity goals to be achieved, which is interesting because we have workplace, and under the stars, which is night's canvas universe unveiled. That universe unveiled, speaking to the angel of balance, speaking to the Valkyrie, speaking to maybe it almost gives an energy of I do not know. I assume when it comes to like software engineering and coding and stuff, you have your front end coders, the side that faces the user to be interacted with, And then you have the back end, which is the thing that makes sure everything functions. Essentially, when you click the link, it works, right? And then the front end is like, it looks appealing, almost at appetizing. And then a full stack is someone that does both the front end and the back end. So it's almost like there's a lot of proficiency that was gained on the front end, or looking at sort of like front end, is it B2C, business to customer or client or consumer? But on the back end, it's almost like the Valkyrie recruits for this back end thing where we sort of start to not only work more with the things that precede what we see on the front end, but maybe there's also like a lot of the conversations and deliberation and the things that are considered, right? Especially if we're talking about justice, on the back end. And that feels like that under the stars energy. So under the stars feels like it's the back end, everything that is not necessarily going on behind the scenes, but it could speak to motivation. And then the office is the front end. So with this city energy, it's like you are becoming the divine is appointing you to a full stack sort of position where you are privy both to the things that happen on the back end, the internal affairs, and the front end where it faces the world at large, where those interactions are like evaluated and stuff like that. And so it's like you'll be able to see both, and with your expertise, you'll be able to steer things again, the horn pressed to your lips, or you being the human factor that is needed to make certain choices or decisions or follow through with whatever. Because sometimes it's like the customer has their experience and their desires that are interpreted for the business on the back end. But like the stakeholders, the people on the back, they also have their own goals. I was going to say agenda, but we'll say goals. And sometimes there's a mismatch in between the two, or sometimes it doesn't fully translate, right? And also, sometimes there are assumptions made by one on the other. The customer assumes things of the company or the people who run the company because of how they conduct their business. And the people on the back assumes things of the customer if the like customer engagement or interaction tends to favor one thing more so than the other, right? Because maybe someone says, maybe it's a customer, maybe it's an observer. Someone's like, you know what would be really cool? Like if we had a solution to this problem that is either kind of niche or a fairly minor inconvenience, but like there's a lot of benefit. And it's because part of me is like, do we really need more convenience? But there's an energy of like, there's a lot of benefit. And let's say the observer informs the company does their thing, they provide a solution, no one interacts with the solution. And then the company assumes that, like, oh, it's not as big of a problem as we thought. Maybe the observer is wrong. Maybe this is a niche customer. Maybe blah, 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 whatever. But in reality, it could be that the approach, either like the approach that the company took, creates more problems or different problems, or it's like you need a thing for another thing for this solution to be viable, or it's like people don't know about it. Like there can be multiple reasons why, but the assumption on the business side could be like, oh, well, this isn't a thing that people want. But in reality, it could be a thing that people want, but maybe that particular iteration causes some kind of like, or there's a reason why people can't get to it or don't want it. And it doesn't mean that the problem isn't a problem. But again, that full stack energy is able to like run between and understand both. And so that person would be like, okay, like maybe this didn't perform because the customers don't have this other thing. that make our particular solution more viable, or maybe there's some other incompatibility somewhere, or maybe the marketing didn't reach the people who it needed to reach because, with algorithm math, the algorithm doesn't work for us, and so we need a different approach or whatever. Like the full stack person being able to see both sides would be able to liaise that conversation, would be able to facilitate that conversation, and would be able to assure the business, like, yes, this is a thing that people want, and then could also go to the customer like, okay, like we see that this particular solution didn't work, what could we do better, or like what's the hang up, what's the whatever, and then they're like, oh well. And like it could be something that's relatively like simple. There could be an assumption that was made somewhere, like when Blizzard came out with Diablo Immortal, and people were like, is this an April Fool's joke? And they were like, what, like people don't, like, you don't have phones? They were like, you guys don't have smartphones, you can't just play this on your smartphone, right? Not necessarily that in particular, but it's what came to my mind, right? And again, this is the city's first responders. So again, it's that full stack energy, because it is, and I think, and that's the thing about being giants, right? We're still grounded, but we can ascend to whatever heights, whatever. When we take that higher perspective, when we just ascend, when we levitate, when our feet leave the ground, it's almost like we're no different than aspects of the divine on the other side of the veil, right? Like if Jesus were to be like, oh, I'm just going to be a monk somewhere in meditation or in communion with God, but never live life, never meet people, never see how people are like living, never interact with the ones who are so easily like overlooked or so often forgotten or cast aside or whatever. Like that was literally his whole thing, to see how like people were living. And there was a temple or two or several that he visited that what happened, right? But like that was literally the whole point. That's this full stack energy. Sometimes when we get too wrapped up in the stars, again, it's that, like that Sagittarius energy with no Gemini tether. It's great in theory. Everything's not everything, so many things work in theory, because the laboratory is all about isolating elements. But in real life, we don't get to tell the wind not to blow, right? And it's one of those things in the laboratory, especially if your windows aren't open. But even if a window is open, like it's so easy to work in the lab and never consider wind blowing. But if you go outside, it's like wind happens. How could, and it is, maybe it's environmental. When we're not in it, we don't necessarily consciously think to consider it because we're not being affected by it. Anyway, full stack energy, both The Office and Under the Stars, Angel of Balance. That was literally the whole point. Cool. Also with the fire station was the title card: Moonlit Ruins, Desert Stars, Oceans Depths, Near and Far, cards as doors to lands unseen, mystic mountains, valleys green. Each card unfolds a tale untold of sacred places in bold. In every image, wisdom speaks, guiding seekers to the peaks. Oh, goodness. Ooh, not the, not the, oh my gosh, we're so glad you're here. I feel like that's like not necessarily a red flag, but what you don't want to see or what you don't want to hear on your day one. Like, oh my gosh, we're so behind on everything. We're so glad. I mean, but there are people who love startup environments. There are people who like that's literally their job, to go into companies that maybe need a little bit of help and to get them up to speed, right? I just saw a post on something, and it was like it was a meme, I guess, a still image with the caption, and the image was like somebody looking shocked, and then the caption was like, "You go on Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares, and you're surprised when he says your kitchen is a nightmare," or something like that. And it's like, it's literally the name of the show, girl. Hello. But sometimes that's how they be acting on there. Some people are like, oh my gosh, yes, can you please help us? Because this is my dream. And more than my ego wants to protect how everything is operating, I want to live my dream. And so if my ego got to get a little bruised, got to take a punch or two in order for me to live my dream and to bring this and share this with the world, I don't want to get beat up, but my ego can be bruised. Some people just double down when the business is failing. And to each their own. Sometimes it is to double down. If your intuition and discernment is telling you to double down, who am I? But again, that's the thing with divine energy. If it is time to make a pivot, a change, a reassessment, or whatever, divine energy will prompt that. Devil energy will just keep gassing you up. Be like Icarus. All right, anyway. Energy Oracle cards, final card. I did just see Goddess of the Moon. Speaking of intuition and discernment. But yeah, it was such an interesting dream last night. I was like, what is happening? I was like, what? I wish I could remember. Because all of a sudden, and it was like in a city. I feel like I was on a rooftop and we're in the city and there were like roads. So it wasn't like Godzilla causing mayhem and destruction. There was just like a procession of giants. And I don't know how they were selected. I don't know. Ooh, not Archangel Michael being like, girl, hello. Archangel Michael, Archangel Commander, Angel of Storms and Battles, the one who's like, I will teach you how to use that sword. And then community. Again, it's a whole community of folk. That's Folkvanger. That's what the Valkyrie do. All right, final card. I'm going to keep going until I get a clean flip or a clean fall. So if I'm here for 5 minutes, I'm here for 5 minutes. Interesting. So it was literally the last two cards, a clean fall and a flip. And it's 11-11. Cornucopia again, number 40 or number 11. 47, Thinking Woman. Excuse me, Thinking Woman and Cornucopia. I would almost say that that performs an interesting. It's not a predicament. It's not a challenge. It's not a dilemma. Criteria, an interesting basis of criteria. Because I'm thinking una empresa, which is a company. It's not an empress. And so this would almost be an energy of Freya, the thinking woman. On one hand, it could be Freya coming up with the list of criteria for her Valkyrie to select whoever goes to Folkvanger. This could also be, on the other hand, it could be us trying to utilize our intuition and discernment for the express purpose of whatever, for the express purpose of the cornucopia. And I'm not necessarily saying it's that Santa Claus energy. or it's I'm not necessarily saying it's that Santa Claus is coming to town energy, because if we're good for presents, then we're not necessarily being good for goodness sake, right? What's at the bottom of the deck? Number 24, adjacent possibilities. Interesting. So again, it plays into that whole, not where is the line, but almost. So if we do good, we can expect good. In an ideal world, if we do good, we should be able to expect good. But they do say no good deed goes unpunished. So even if we're being good for presence, we're still being good and we're still doing good. So we do still deserve something, right? Adjacent possibilities with cornucopia. Maybe not necessarily as much as being in Healer of the Ages is under that. Archangel Michael is under Healer of the Ages. Healer of the Ages and a broken heart is under Archangel Michael. First chakra and appreciation is under that. We saw number nine. Number nine was that butterfly change. But between the broken heart and Healer of the Ages is Archangel Michael, root chakra. And maybe that's just an energy that's like that healing. 2451 is a 6 6. 35 is 8. 9 is 9. 15 is another 6. Um, Maybe that's an energy of sometimes we can only be as healed as we're ready to be, or we can only be as healed as much as we have forgiven. Or moved on, either or. And again, it's I think that came out maybe last time about how difficult it is for a wound to heal when it's like re-traumatized over and over, right? If every time a scab start or every time a wound starts to scab, we like re-injure ourselves. Essentially, it's a fresh wound every time, but it's in the same area, so it's like the same wound. Like we're healing from something that's still ongoing, which is very different than healing from something that isn't. It's not that healing from something ongoing is impossible. It's just different. So yeah, thinking woman cornucopia, adjacent possibilities. Again, it's just like it's different. It's different when we're good for the sake of being good. It's different when we are proactive or show up because we care versus when it's performative, right? At the end of the day, there should be a measure of good that is reciprocated for every good deed. But who am I? A man, a mortal, a child to so many, an old man to others, to ponder on, to muse on the whims of the divine and how they seek or denote whatever they see in souls. It's literally beyond me and beyond the scope of this. And also, it doesn't matter, because again, that would lead to us doing what it is that a video or a person tells us we have to do or should do to attain or achieve whatever. You want presents? Here are 10 things to do. If here are 10 things to do if you don't want coal this Christmas, and 100 more things if you want a good present. This is so weird. I kind of zoned. Oh, look. It's right there. It's the butterfly. I didn't see it. Oh my gosh. The butterfly was number 9. Number 9 is the broken heart. For some reason, I kind of like spaced out a little bit when I looked at that, and it looked like the walls had eyes. The walls having eyes is an energy of us being like, we're not only evaluated when we're making like public appearances, or and again, so like when it comes to that performative energy, again, spreading awareness of things already does so much. So even what is performative has its value, and even that has its benefits. Not to, and again, like if there is a modicum of good, if there is a measure of good, it should be rewarded in kind. Emphasis on in kind. But the eyes on the wall, the fly on the wall, that speaks to who we are on a soul level. And beyond deeds, beyond actions, that is also looked at. That's why we saw the broken heart, first chakra, Archangel Michael, healer of the ages, and whatever that last card, adjacent possibilities. Because that helps us heal on a deeper level. It helps mend wounds that open up pathways for us to get to know ourselves on deeper and deeper levels, more intimate, more emotional, more spiritual, more mental, more soul divine levels. And just like we saw that one card that mentioned the point where reality, it was like to know love is for reality to be sweeter than the dream. Like there are some times where we can live aspects of our dream and not even realize it. And then it becomes easy to look back. Right. But yeah. And maybe that's what the Valkyries of Folkvanger do. Odin wants bodies, honestly. I mean, not just anybody. You want a body that's gonna like do something, but ultimately, it's almost like it's not the character of the person that matters too much. It's the amount of destruction and chaos that they can cause, because those are forces that he can throw at the fire giants and whoever else. Right? He doesn't care. Odin just wants you to pick up a sword and point it in the right direction. But Folkvanger is different. I was literally just thinking about that. Not Folkvanger specifically, but I feel like I was thinking about. Oh, because I started playing a new game recently, and I know a little bit about Greco-Roman mythology. I started playing Hades. Hades 2 came out, but I got the first one. It's been on my radar for a while. And spoiler alert, I mean, I haven't finished the story, but I'm like catching up because I know the story. There's a child Apparently Hades and Persephone have a child. So this is after Persephone goes missing. This is when everything is frozen because Demeter is like, without my daughter, everyone will suffer. I don't care a lick about these humans that are supposed to venerate me. You will suffer and you will die until my daughter is back by my side. Because that's what the anyway, because that's what it was. So I was just like, oh, like it is like a Fimbulventor type energy, a long winter before whatever deal was struck, where Persephone was like, okay, I'll split my time. And when she's with Demeter, Demeter's happy. And when she's not, it's wintertime and everything dies. And then I was like, oh, it's interesting how like that long winter is seen both in the Fimbulventor of Norse mythology that precedes Ragnarok and is here when Persephone goes missing. That's why I was thinking about that. And you could say it was like the loss of light. Um, the living lost Baldur or Balder, and Olympus slash Demeter lost Persephone. And then things got really, really cold. All right. Spencer's Tarot again, clean. That was an immediate. The flip was clean enough. It was so slow. It was immediate. We see a card that we've already seen with two that we haven't. Oh. Valkyrie, Justice, was the leader of the pack of these three cards. We have the Four of Cups, the Ghoul, and the Five of Swords, the Angel, which is so interesting. You could say the Ghoul is the one that, not the one that rots. The Ghoul is the soul that is earthbound. The Angel is the soul that departs for the heavens. You could say. What's at the bottom of the deck? The High Priestess, Fortune Teller. There's like this phoenix in a cage. What's interesting about this fortune teller, or what stands out to me, is she picks up the crystal ball like a focus rather than like sitting it on the table and gazing into it. That's just an immediate sort of point that I notice. Also, this II Roman numeral 2 looks like that cornucopia 11. The fortune teller, being a card reader specifically, at the bottom of the deck where this Valkyrie, makes a call is so interesting. Again, I could say low hanging fruit. It's that Santa Claus is coming to town energy. It was the other way that the thinking woman could be us utilizing our intuition and discernment to divine paths to abundance. And there are many paths to abundance, and not all of them necessarily connected to service. I'm sure there are several paths of abundance that aren't necessarily connected to service. So if we seek a path that we don't have to be of service in, then maybe we should like do that or say that or specify that or pursue that rather than an abundance that is associated with service. Or I mean not, right? We make our own choices and decisions. Hey, who am I but a guy? Who am I but some guy? And again, it's almost an attempt to influence a decision. And we can do that to other people. With other people, we can wear masks. With other people, we can let our philanthropy speak for us. We can be that. What is it? It's like that TV, like heart, like the world's sweetheart on like TV or in movies, but in reality, it's like don't meet your heroes because some of them only play nice on the TV, and some of them only play villains because they're not in real life, and so when they play pretend, they really want to be. They say all the things that they would never say, do all the things that they would never do, because it's a role, it's acting. Maybe, and again, we saw first Trucker Archangel Michael with it being the root. It is kind of hard, could be difficult to separate from motivation because it's literally the root. I am going to, if Google says heads, we'll go there. Please say tails. Hey, Google, flip a coin, please. Tails. Woo! I'm pretty sure I said if Google says heads, we'll go there. Yeah, because I said please say tails. Okay, we're not going to go there. It's a complete aside. I'm going to show you the cards for you to arrive at your own conclusion if you reach one, or we can just keep it moving. So we have the ghoul. I'll show you all three: the ghoul, the angel, and the Valkyrie. Justice, the Four of Cups, and the Five of Swords. And it's interesting that this is an 8 justice rather than an 11 justice. From what I may incorrectly recall, in the girl, why can't I think of the Thoth? In the Thoth Tarot, Justice is 8 and Strength is 11. In the Rider Waite Smith, it's the reverse, where Justice is 11 and Strength is 8. Do, 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 do. There you go. Interesting how, I don't know, the ghoul is like behind the angel. Hmm, maybe that's why I didn't say anything. I was gonna say it's interesting how like the ghoul is behind the angel and the Valkyrie is behind the ghoul. But I just noticed that the ghoul is standing over a grave, just like the Valkyrie stands above the deceased. With the with the angel here, there's an energy here. Again, almost out of left field. It's almost like the Valkyrie has come for one of Freya's chosen. The ghoul has come to create a zombie. But whoever this person is, it's like they're already the angel. So the soul isn't in the body to be chosen. And neither is it resting in the body under the ground to be made undead or whatever by the ghoul. It's this angel, which creates an interesting, I want to say paradox, but also paradigm in and of itself. Sorry, I was waiting for my reaction on the TV. Um, a far left, like out of left field, girl. Far out of left field, girl. I don't know. The saying is like from out of left field. The saying isn't from out of right field, okay? But from out of left field, from like way out of left field. Take it as it resonates. If it resonates, if it don't resonate, don't take it. My brain operates it. Look, all of the not qualifiers, all of the what do you call it? Oh, I can't think of the word right now. But the word that people say, right? Everything is made up. This is fiction. Um, oh, what's the word? It's something that you do to limit like legal reliability, to limit liabilities and stuff like that. Disclaimers, all of the disclaimers out front. There's an energy here. It almost feels like there's a play between the divine and devil energies, or the energies of the divine and the energies of man, constructs of man that are created to keep certain systems moving, or entities that work with those constructs. It's like they're both making a play on this individual, on a person. And then they both find out that it's like an angel. And it's like, whoa. And it feels like on the side of the ghoul, it's like, oh, well, we missed out on that one. But on the side of the Valkyrie, it's almost this energy of like, if this is an angel, like, shouldn't I know that? Like, why did no one tell me that this soul was whatever? And so it's like the Valkyrie finds out. What are the implications of that? Girl, I don't know. And then you have the high priestess here. Not the high priestess here, with the one who knows but rarely tells. And then behind this is the cannibal seven of swords, but that's a giant. Behind the priestess is a giant. I'm pretty sure it's the only giant in the deck. And we were talking about giants, the procession of giants. Interesting. I feel like that just like completely flipped a whole little whatever. And I'm like, wait. Almost 3 hours in. Stay for the good stuff. I'm just kidding. You can skip through. You can skip around. Interesting. That's so interesting. There are a few questions, question mark, that raises. I feel like, I assume, I haven't read the Bible cover to cover. There's much of it I haven't read. I actually had that thought the other night, I think last night. Like, I wonder how many people have actually read the Bible outside of scriptures that are brought up in church, Bible study, or like by other people. You know what I mean? Like, when we sit down and get our own understanding rather than a context provided, a very certain interpretation and context that is provided by an individual. And it's not that that context is incorrect at all. That's not the point. Anyway, I feel like I assume, maybe wildly incorrectly, probably, that like Jesus got preferential treatment from God, right? There were certain like conversations that God had with only Jesus, or like certain things that like only Jesus was privy to. Now, because the angel approached Mary, but that's one story, right? What if there were like several Jesuses, right? What if there were like several people who were approached by angels and told that, like, you're going to give birth? You're going to go through the congratulations, you've been selected for immaculate conception. Because the line of thinking is, and maybe that was a special case, the line of thinking is it's almost like with that angel sort of being incognito, which is also interesting. When I had the dream about the company, the MC, the host, was looking for someone who was associated with an angel in some way. So, like, while there were multiple people making bids to take over the company, that was what the person was looking for. And then there was the angel right there. Oh my gosh, lol. Um, so I just thought about that dream not too long ago for reasons, um, because of the setting of the dream. That's why I thought about it. Anyway, anyway, because like, what if it was just like, and again, maybe that was a certain case and situation. What if, like, nowadays, if it were to happen again, like, Jesus is just born somewhere and nobody necessarily knows which, like, even the divine doesn't necessarily know which person, like, that would be, or which person that is, right? And because of mortal flesh, it's almost like mortal flesh is opaque enough. Speaking of the, how do people see like this? Maybe mortal flesh is opaque enough that there are certain signatures or aspects of the soul that it can hide, unless those aspects are on display, right? So at birth, there's a lot of pure people that, life happens. But it's almost like, what if it isn't until like a certain case scenario instance when that, and anyway, when both sort of influences show up, both the Gould and the Valkyrie, and then they find out, like, oh, it was that, like, oh, that's him or her, or it's them, it's the person. I don't know. Anyway, I'm just like, now my this is my brain attempting to process or analyze what I should leave alone because the high priestess was literally there. And as foolhardy and confident and self-assured and full of myself as I am, if the high priestess shows up, I'm like, okay, the best I can offer at this point are guesses. You know, I can try to read between the lines, but if something is withheld, then even intuition or discernment may not be enough. Like, by divine decree, something is not known. We can do our best to get as many pieces and try to piece together a thing. I'll just leave it. I don't know, but I'm like, whoa. Or because we saw the card of fire and it was like, let your creative potential lead the way. That's what it is. It's just potential. And so maybe as an individual of potential, whoever, that's why both the ghoul and the Valkyrie show up, right? The ghoul to warp and use for devilish means, the Valkyrie to use for the divine, but they expect to find only potential that can be molded. But when they actually find the angel, it's like, it's potential that has already, it's already like expressed. So it's like it's clay that has already been molded, that is already put through the fires, that is already, maybe it's like not glazed and polished and stuff, but it's already been molded and it's already been dried. To make that into something else, it would have to be destroyed, resaturated, whatever. It's like it's so far gone, it can't be molded into anything else. And maybe that's the thing. Because when it's just potential, you have more to work with. Or if it's potential and like unrealized potential, then it can be directed. Oh man. Whoa, two cards fell out face up, two cards fell out face down, and one card flipped over in the middle. I'm just reading from the book. I guess I'll do all of them. Oh my gosh. This is so interesting. So with number 26, we saw the lady and the lion. I'm pretty sure it was number 26. This time, it's a lady and a bird. A bird. And it's interesting that it's a bird because in the priestess, high priestess fortune teller, there was the bird in the cage, and I was like, oh, it's like a phoenix in a cage. I'm pretty sure I said that. If I didn't, I thought it when I saw the bird in the cage. Oh, yeah, let's not do it that way. The bird in the cage, right there. And maybe that speaks to, again, that energy of potential, right? When it's just potential, sometimes we come like the first energy that comes along that's like, I will set you free. We treat as whatever. And maybe it's just my semi general distrust and skepticism in people that's like, you set me free for what, for why? What's in it for you? How do you benefit? Am I supposed to believe that out of the kindness of your heart, you saw fit to come and help me? Really? In the past version of me was a lot more skeptical. Me now, I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you. I'm still gonna like do a vibe check and everything, right? But I'm not going to reject whatever just as a blanket, whatever. But here we see the bird uncaged again with that angel energy. There was nothing to set free because it wasn't a potential that was whatever. It's already in the process of being actualized, which now reminds me in the Notoria tarot that I almost went for, we saw the fool who had fallen and gained their wings versus the one that jumped off the cliff and just plummeted. Again, like the biggest thing to me, it's almost like, well, wouldn't the Valkyrie know? The question is like, why doesn't the Valkyrie know? Maybe that's the Valkyrie's question to Freya. It's like, you already knew that this soul was whatever, yet you sent me to collect anyway. And Freya was like, it was a chance, it was a possibility. They were born with potential, but everyone's born with potential, which is where the question of, like, did Jesus get preferential treatment came from? Or was it the divine in the same presence and capacity as the divine shows up for everyone? But because Jesus was who he was, there was just more that he got out of those interactions, right? It's very much the like thing of like, oh, I didn't know that you could do this. Well, you never asked. Of course, you don't know anything about me because every time we get together, you only talk about yourself. So why are you surprised that you don't know anything about me? It's like, I knew this. Right. Anyway. I just saw that in a show. Someone was like, "You didn't tell me that it was a K drama, a Korean drama, and there are people from what I assume is China, um, from Ming, and it could not be China. Also, it was back in the day, so it wasn't called China at that point. Just like Korea wasn't called Korea. Anyway, there was like the royal in between person and their retinue, and someone was speaking the language of the people, and they were like, you didn't tell me you spoke this language, how dare you try to deceive me? And the person was like, you never asked, and it was never relevant or pertinent because we have official translators. So And like, since I'm in your company, I speak to you in the language that you understand. And when we're in the presence of others, I speak to you and, as is would be customary, right? Because, back in them days, or even now, you start speaking whatever, they might accuse you of plotting. Oh, you're a spy. You've infiltrated whatever. It could have been a number of things. But he was just like, you never asked. Anyway, I don't necessarily fully. Oh, yeah, yeah. Because it was like, was there preferential treatment or is that just whatever? And on my part, it was an assumption that it was like, oh, well, Jesus got preferential treatment. But maybe that wasn't the case. Maybe the divine shows up for everybody in the same ways. And again, that goes back to that Nine of Cups energy with the thinking woman and cornucopia that I didn't get full into. Of basically, like, we have what we ask for, or we are led and guided according to how we approach and what our desires are. And so if we ask for specifically money, if we ask specifically for wealth, when we refer to abundance or when we talk about abundance, the frequency that we approach the divine with is I want money, then like that could dominate what it is that we sort of receive. And even if it doesn't dominate what we receive, that's what we're going to pay attention to because that's what we want. But we don't ask for like happiness or fulfillment or like those very real aspects of abundance aren't in the frequency that we approach the divine with at all. And so then we get all the money, but like we're miserable and like, oh, well, the money was supposed to make me happy. I was like, well, you didn't ask for happiness. Even when you said abundance, you were asking for money. Your frequency was full of how do I get money? I want to get paid. I want a payday. They say money don't what's this? Money can't buy happiness. Well, here I'm going to be the one to buy happiness. You thought you were going to be the one to buy happiness, and then you found out that it doesn't work that way. Versus if we ask or if we have a heart or a mind or a spirit to seek deeper, then we're met in deeper ways. Anyway, I feel like that was a long way to get to that point. But it's interesting to see here the woman with the bird uncaged. Not only full, but also maybe it gives that energy. I feel like there's a word for it. I feel like there's a word for things that grow as big as their containers. And it's not bonsai. But when the bird is in the cage, it would never get this big. Was that a video game? No. That was a movie? It was a movie I didn't watch, but I saw a recap. There was like a rat in a can, and somebody put the rat in the can where they're like itty bitty, and they fed the rat while they were in the can, so they grew as big as the can. And then they had to like cut the can open or something like that because, of course, you can't get the rat out. Maybe there's a metaphor for something there about how if something grows in a place, then it has access that it would never have otherwise, right? There are people that have appliances, furniture, all kinds of stuff that are bigger than their doorways. And that's because it's assembled inside. When you assemble something inside, it doesn't obey the same laws and constants because it was taken in piecewise. And piecewise, it works. But if you're trying to shove a whole baby grand piano through an itty bitty doorway, it's not going to work. Then we have 7 and 18. Oh, whoa. Oh, what is this story? Because now we see this winged creature with this egg, or we see these wings. It's almost like the back of the thing. And there's like these two individuals. And then there's this one almost maybe winged swoopy bird lady. And again, we kind of sort of start here with one person in the bird. There was the card that came, the same one that talked about like a soulmate is near or whatever. Whereas like love is when reality is sweeter than the dream. What this? And there's still two more cards face down. 25 is perceive, learn, be aware, air external events. So many external events and so much action. Change of perception, examine your worldview. A quote from Buddha: the mind is everything. What you think, you become. The mind is everything. What you think, you become. And again, coming off of like frequency and not just words, but also again, where there was the broken heart, Archangel Michael, healer of the ages, and then adjacent possibilities. But specifically, those three: the broken heart, Archangel Michael, root chakra, and healer of the ages. That it's something about addressing the underlying. And maybe that's another thing that gives potential direction. It's that deep self knowing. In the absence of that deep self knowing, it's easier to be influenced by forces either way, for good or bad. There are good influences, there are not so great influences, and there are bad influences. I'm not going to sit on here and be like, there's no bad or no evil. That's not me. If that's your truth, live it, girl. But there is some evil in the world. And painting it with that brush of whatever. I mean, I guess if you put glitter in a pile of poop, it does sparkle in the sun. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's still a pile of poop. You know what I mean? Anyway, sorry. Anyway, the mind is everything. What you think, you become. And again, this is a bird that can grow to this amazing size because it's not stuck in a cage. The bird in the cage, the caged mind, the one that is molded by forces both man made and divine. And sometimes one wins out over the other or holds more influence than the other. 18. Love to interact, fire action, help thy neighbor. You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection. Another quote by Buddha. Help thy neighbor. Ooh, girl, not the. That is so. Who would think that it would be controversial to, in the same breath as talking about embodying love and the divine and stuff like that, helping thy neighbor would be, girl. Again, we're not going there. It was right there. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But like, was that not so much of the whole message and the whole point? And now I'm so glad it's not me. See, but that's why I'm not Jesus. That's why Jesus is better than me. That's why he was chosen. Because I wish I would make the ultimate sacrifice. Not only for the 12, maybe 13 question mark. I don't know why there's some mysterious 13th disciple. for the 12 people closest to you to betray you at the end, and then for people hundreds, thousands of years later to evoke your name and do literally the exact opposite of what you dedicated your life to. And then they claim to be yours. Ooh. See, that's why I say better than me. Better than me because I don't care what was promised. I'd show up. Oh, no. You think you're going to do what? In whose name? And claim to be what? Oh, no. Oh, no. See, he came the first time so that humanity would get a New Testament God. Then he'd come back and be like, you know what? Maybe it's time for some Old Testament. Just let me stop. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Let me breathe a little bit. I'm getting a little warm. Let me breathe a little bit. But yeah, as much as we love to believe and venerate and worship love, you think we could be a little more loving to one another and it not be what it is? Number 7, look for harmony and balance. Fine, we get some water, some feelings, some emotions. Finally, there's been a lot of fire and air, a lot of action, a lot of external events, a little bit of earth. Now we get some water. Oh, lol. Oh, this is like, it's literally gorgeous. It's literally perfect. It's literally so beautiful. This number 7, resolve inner conflict. And again, that's part of what that broken heart, Archangel Michael, first chakra, root chakra, healer of the ages energy does. Because there are a lot of times where we want to move on from certain things, but there are things that we just can't let go of. Right? And we pray to the divine. And, I just saw that recently. I forget what it was. There was a clip of something. It may have been Bruce Almighty, maybe, where Morgan Freeman was in a diner, question mark, talking to a somebody, question mark. And he had a line of questions of like, when you pray to God for your family to come together, do you think that you magically wake up one day and everyone gets along? Or do you think that there are situations where the family chooses to pull together and that's how they grow closer? Type energy. With all of the love and the worldwide harmony and the 4 2020, all these days of meditation, like, did we think that all of a sudden we would all wake up and be one glorious, loving collective? Or did we think that there would be opportunities to become aware of things where we decide to show up in loving, supportive ways that build that collective and community that we're supposedly manifesting? Or did we, oh, it's on the news, that means it's a distraction, it's an illusion, it's not real? Or is this the vehicle to get you to the very thing that supposedly you were manifesting? Like, what? I guess we're here. I can't, we're 3 hours in. I guess we're here. And it applies to many things, right? And again, I kind of touched on that earlier with that. It was a little bit carried on the sticky with the storm warning. When the storm warning came out on the bus stop, or when there was the bus stop and the workplace, where it was like sometimes we're not necessarily told how much work we're going to have to do to get to the end goal. Sometimes it's because if we were to know, we would decide that, hey, you know what? As much as like wonderfully as things could turn out, that's a little bit too much work. And I think I actually prefer misery. I think I prefer my life over having to do all that. And it's like, hey, you got free will. Just because the answer or a pathway is revealed to you, just because your intuition and discernment informs you, doesn't mean that you actually have to listen. It doesn't mean that you have to do anything. Your free will is still in effect. And the divine doesn't get mad when you ask for advice and then proceed to do the opposite and then complain. Because the divine is unconditional love. And it's not petty like Patrick and others. I just saw a reel the other day that was like me when someone asks me for my advice and then proceeds to do the opposite and then comes back to me with like complaints when I literally like told them that this is how it would turn out. We're human. We get to do that. That's why I love being human. Not the only reason, not necessarily a major reason, but hey, I'm a human. I'm a little human. I make mistakes. The quote here: if you want to be somebody really special, be yourself. Aww. If you want to be an earth angel, how about you try being a little loving and, actually kind of angelic and not another one of these little goblins and ghouls running around, making even more zombies, just traumatizing more people, proliferating and prolonging all of these different cycles that. Bro, can I breathe for real? I guess we're here. This is where I am. Click off. The two cards face down. One we've already seen, and another that we haven't. Number 2, which is interesting because 2 was the number of the High Priestess, but it was stylized like an 11. 8 is 2 cubed. 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, and so on and so forth. That brings to mind the powers of 2 and 3. In the powers of 2 and 3, Scorpio, I think both Scorpio and Virgo, but I think Scorpio was the first that we all have a spark of the divine within us. But Scorpio, like that spark was like active, right? That wasn't like this little dormant flame that's like sputtering and on the verge of dying out. It was like Scorpio spark was a flame. And so with that energy of like, this is a whole angel? Hello? Excuse me? On top of that bodhisattvic energy? And did Scorpio get to? I don't think I wrote the numbers down. I don't think I wrote the numbers down. I'm pretty sure I didn't keep track. I'm pretty sure I didn't. I think there were a few that got 2 though, where it was 2, 4, 8. I think. I don't remember. I'm gonna just read these and then I'm gonna be off of here. Again, like I said, I feel like largely at this point in time, the folks who get it, I don't want to say the folks who get it, and the folks who don't, because another thing that I saw recently that was very true is there is all kinds of information available on the internet, regardless of if we agree or disagree. It's there, and what we interact with, the algorithm feeds us more of. And I think it was Jamila Al Jamil. Is that her name? And it's so funny that Jamila Al Jamil, because her character Tahani in The Good Place, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, her character in The Good Place was this ultra wealthy philanthropist that still ended up in the bad place. And it's like all of the good that you did was to try to prove that you were as good as or better than your sister. So, yes, while you contributed to like all of these amazing causes, all of that was out of vanity and out of proving. And none of it was for goodness sake. So, yeah, that's why you're in the bad place, even though you spent so much money doing so much good. Anyway, I'm pretty sure Jamila Al Jamil is her name. It may not be. What's her name? I feel like I could at least do her the honor and credit of Jamila Jamil. I think Tahani Al Jamil is Jamila Aliyah Jamil. Okay. I wasn't. Yeah, Tahani Al Jamil was her name in the good place. Jamila Jamil. She was saying basically, like, that's how algorithms work. And so sometimes when we're having these conversations, we think that, like, we're heated because we're having different reactions to the same information. She was like, there's so much disagreement that happens because we think it's like different opinions about the same information, but in reality, more often than not, we're having different opinions about different information because of however the algorithm is catering the information that we come across. So if we only see, rather than the whole picture of something, if we only see one side, kind of sort of going to that full stack energy, if we only see like the front end facing the customers, or if we only see the back end facing the shareholders, stakeholders, and the company, like there's half of the picture that we're not seeing. And we're having different reactions to this different information, and we're upset because we're not reaching the same conclusion. And I was like, whoa, for some reason, I feel like, that makes sense. Because, especially when I came across the clip, I'm like, it seems like there are people selectively cherry picking certain things and are like upset that other people aren't upset. And it's like, girl, well, have you seen the rest of it? If you've seen the rest, you would understand. Maybe you still wouldn't care. Anyway, there's context. So, oh my gosh, I love how I go on these little like tangents, and then I read the card, and it's like, maybe I'm not completely off the mark. Two, play. We're back in the element of fire and action. Let go of your biases. That's this card. Let go of your biases. Also, for this to be tied to the high priestess with the bird in the cage in the back, and because the phoenix was in the cage, it can't get to the same size as this bird. And this one was more or less the same, right? 25, change of perception, examine your worldview. The mind is everything what you think you become. And then let go of your biases. Love that. Love that. Cool. If you let your past go, it doesn't mean that your past will let you go. I feel like that's a complete 180. I feel like on one hand, it's like let go of your biases. On the other hand, just because you let your past go doesn't mean your past let you go. Maybe that's a little bit of a tip of the hat to justice, right? Because if free will is a thing, then there must be consequences to our actions. If every action led to the same consequence, it's not really free will. Just like if you play a video game and every single dialogue option progresses the story in the same way, it's the illusion of choice. Because ultimately, maybe it gratifies you to see your character say a different thing, but if it doesn't affect the outcome of the story, then you might as well not have any choice. And I think sometimes it makes me think of like, it's like those jokes, right? Well, I see them as jokes and like skits and stuff when someone's like, well, yeah, like I gave my life to Christ and he like whatever. So all of my loans and all of the debts that I have to pay, like he paid it. Jesus paid it when he died on the cross. So I ain't got to pay you back. And it's like, girl, that was in the spiritual realm. But right now we're incarnate on earth. You took this money, I'm going to need my money. Hello. Anyway, number 8, look for harmony and balance. Earth material world. Fire in action, earth material world. Confidence returns. Yeah, we saw this one before. Confidence returns, life gains order, and balance is restored. Excuse me, let go of your biases, balance is restored. What an interesting combination of just because you let go of your past doesn't mean the past let you go. And then balance is restored. Sometimes we got to pay, right? Your life is not a problem to be solved, but a gift to be opened. Cool. I've done enough. I've said enough. But yeah, again, like that's the thing with justice sometimes. That's the thing with karmic corrections. I think sometimes, going back to like the whole skit and the joke, sometimes we like to imagine, or sometimes we hope, sometimes we desperately hope that justice will rule in our favor, even when we know that we were in the wrong. And we can make all kinds of excuses like, oh, well, it's not illegal, or no one told me that you couldn't do this, or blah, blah, blah. Somebody else did it. And it's like there's a difference between thinking that you can get away with something and genuinely like not knowing of something, right? And they do say ignorance of the law is no excuse, but the divine doesn't necessarily punish us for things that we don't know. But also at the same time, the divine speaks through us in like via the conscience, the Jiminy Cricket, through intuition, discernment, and those private lines of communication. So we know. And again, there's a difference between like, I didn't think I would get caught. I didn't think anyone would be affected. I made the conscious choice and decision that even though my intuition, discernment, Jiminy Cricket conscience is telling me this is wrong, I'm making the conscious choice to do it anyway. That's different than I genuinely like was ignorant. I genuinely did not know. And I feel like ignorance is one of those things that in some ways gets a much harsher, I want to say like a much harsher rap or rep. Is it rep or is it rap? Because I feel like it's rap, like a bad rap, but it would be like bad reputation, bad rep. Anyway, it's fine. I think it is one of those things that can be judged a lot harsher because truly, genuinely, if we don't know, we don't know. But again, there's a difference between something that we truly, genuinely don't know and things that we don't wish to believe are true, or things that we actively ignore, or narratives and perspectives that we buy into because the truth is inconvenient or makes us feel bad or look bad. And so, well, like, none of that, that's not ignorance. That's refusing to accept a truth of something that we see. Or it's like um, stomping out the blossoming of a realization of the truth before it can really germinate. And again, if we have to do that, we know that something's up, and that's not true ignorance. There are some things that we just don't know. And ignorance in and of itself, I feel like largely it shouldn't be a crime because what we don't know, we don't know. But it also depends on what we do out of ignorance, right? Now, if we say, like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that if I kept you from getting any food, you would die of starvation, then at that point, it's like, oh, are you human? Yes. Do you need to eat to survive? Yes. If you didn't eat, Do you think you would die? Yes. Okay. Well, I am also human. I also need to eat. So, in what world did you think that I wouldn't perish if I never have a meal? In what world does that make sense? And again, that's convenience is different. Bottom of the deck is number 20. This time we get a king and we get a masculine, feminine coded energy. I don't think there are too many masculine coded energies in this deck. So that's interesting. And the whole point of that is, but again, like when it comes to the thinking woman, when it comes to Freya, when it comes to energies of the divine evaluates, communicates on a soul level. There's a lot of things that mentally we can convince ourselves, emotionally, we may be stunted or traumatized. There are a lot of things that could keep us from seeing the truths that deep down we actually know. But since those conversations with the divine are held on soul levels, there is some understanding that is lent because we are humans having human experiences. That's why avatars are a thing, and that's why Jesus came. So that there can be some grace and so that there could be some mercy because we're on earth and we're trying to survive, girl. You talking about thrive mindset when I'm trying to survive. Okay. Where's my next meal coming from? Hello. I can worry about all that other stuff when my belly isn't collapsing. And again, like in that case instance scenario, and again, that's like it's different. That's the benefit of justice taking the human condition experience and a case by case situationality into consideration. Like that's the benefit of that, right? If someone is literally starving and the food that they steal is food that's going to go to like the land waste and rot, or it's going to go to a landfill and it's going to rot. If someone takes that and they eat it because otherwise they would starve, maybe we should let them have it rather than being like, oh, you stole from me and I'm going to sue you, question mark, take you to court, question mark, have you arrested because the food that I was perfectly content with rotting, you are now eating and you're not paying me for that. But we all believe in and worship love. It is actually very loving to watch people starve. Let me stop. Let me stop. Let me stop. I'm sorry. I feel like I'm apologizing a lot for things that I need not apologize for. I don't apologize for saying it. I apologize because that's not necessarily in the intention of this. Although, like I said, the cards have been validating it along the way. So hey. And two, like that's the world we live in. Which again, it makes me so glad that it wasn't me on the cross. It makes me so glad that it wasn't me on the cross, that it wasn't me who did whatever, that I am not the subject of anyone's religion of love because we have grown so cruel in so many ways that we don't see, which is sometimes the most mind boggling part of the whole. Like, we just genuinely don't see it. And we are so devout and so. Number 20, bottom of the deck. Love to interact. Take time to share your gifts. One word frees us of all the weight and pain of life. That word is love. Sophocles, imagine. Love is just a word that we use to free ourselves of our moral responsibilities to one another. It's not how we show up for one another. It's not, love is not in the actions that we take to guarantee the well being and safety. Like when they say love thy neighbor, they just mean like say that you love your neighbor. They don't mean Don't actively work against the safety and well-being. I'm sorry. Let me stop. Okay, we're there. It's gone. It's over. It's fine. We're done. We're done. We're done. When they said "What's love got to do with it?" that's what they were singing about. That's what that song was actually about. Like, yeah. Anyway, that's where we are apparently. But although it would appear that that's where we are, and one of my biggest comforts that has become more and more and more and more and more of a comfort over the past few years is that like love and like intentionality, awareness, compassion, like I see it more and more. And it's a shame that things would have to continue to escalate. But at the same time, because they are, there are a lot of narratives and a lot of stories. There are a lot of lies and a lot of veils that are falling apart, that are crumbling. Because at a certain point, it's like, again, like if love is really the point, or if that's really what we claim to do, if the betterment and well being is something that we truly champion, then why are we actively making things worse for everybody? For 99% of people, why are we actively making things worse for 99% of people if we are truly working for the betterment of anyone? Again, it's a shame that it's taken what it has taken. It's a shame that so much, it's always been a shame that so much of what happens on this world happens. But again, one of my comforts has been I sign into my social media, and more and more and more, I see my friends and my family and people that would call themselves my friend or my family not on the side of actively oppressing me. You know what I mean? Because in what was that, 2011, 2012, 2013, that was not the case. I remember, I'm pretty sure it was freshman year. I was in a new environment by myself, and things happened, and I get on my social media, and the people that I call friends, the people that I think like love me and actually care about me, like when things happen and me on my social media, I'm reading the responses. Me, a black man in America, a big black man in America, the boogeyman that a lot of people like to whatever. Like call you say that you like love me, cherish me, value me, and this is your response to what is happening. So if that were me, because it could be, you have revealed yourself to me. And I'm supposed to feel comfortable or valued or actually loved or worthy of breathing air, going to a gas station, going to visit somebody, living. imagine, imagine working so hard to make your life better because that's what people say that you're supposed to do. Imagine being the model, whatever, because you're going to be different. You're going to prove the narrative's wrong. And then they come for you anyway because that's what they've done. They've come for people. The people who make certain narratives and who promote certain narratives from the very beginning, there have been people who have actively worked to make those true, to make those narratives ring true, to appear to be true. And the grass that rises, girl, it gets cut to keep the lawn pristine and to keep the HOA happy. The grass gets mowed. But anyway, that again, like that's not, I'm seeing more and more and more and more people like actually having enough compassion. and love for one another to really see what's going on and to be like, you know what, like that's not right. And it's a completely different experience than I had before. And that to me has kept my faith. It's stoked the fires of my faith in humanity, honestly. To get on to my stuff and be like, okay, like, all right, love and compassion and human decency it's a fight, but it's winning. It is claiming human decency is claiming more and more individuals. It ain't just people saying that they love you, but then they actively work against you, or they celebrate the folks who do, or they help them. And again, with that higher perspective that came out in that last story, there's like word love is just a word that we say that will free us. But when it comes to real life, girl, it's an illusion. It's a trick. It's a deception. Ain't none of it real. It's not as bad as they make it seem. Well, maybe we're seeing it because you and the hundreds of thousands of other people that you convinced to participate in these worldwide days of manifestation for peace and affirming all this stuff, maybe the divine said, oh, you want a united, loving, one peoples? Well, here are opportunities to make that a reality. But, and so I don't know. Don't blame Neptune for illusions. And don't blame Pisces because we can't make our dreams a reality when that's literally the planet and the sign and the house of like interfacing with the divine to see the vision. And yes, more often than not, the vision is not reality, but we receive the vision so that we can walk our day to day life, so that we can make choices and decisions, so we can utilize our free will to make those a reality. In and of itself, it's not gonna be if it ain't today, it probably won't be tomorrow unless we do something. Anyway, I've said my piece. And then again, in the face of so much becoming aware of so much more, not only becoming aware of so much more tragedy and misfortune, but also as it like continues to happen, because apparently ain't nobody doing nothing about it to stop it, or nobody was, or no one was in a position to stop things from getting worse for a while. But because of that, it's like more and more and more and more eyes are being open to the truths of things rather than the glamours and the fancy wordsmithing and control of the media and selective advertising and silencing. It's like you can only silence so much when you're the main one screaming and yelling and causing all the commotion. Hello? All right. Now I'm out of here. I'm out of here for real. I hope that you all have an amazing whatever whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. Emphasis on acting, emphasis on alignment, acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. I hope that whatever you need along your path, journey, and what you find. And yeah, I don't know. I am delusionally curious and hopeful. Terminal, what is the terminally? I don't know if I'd say terminally. I am curiously hopeful, maybe delusional, to see how things change and shift. I don't know. Anyway, I'll catch y'all later. I'm gonna find something to eat. Bye.